Hello, I'm Holly and I'm back. So it has been a year since I last did a video, and first of all I just want to apologise for kind of disappearing off the face of the earth, and for everyone who reached out, thank you for, checking if I'm okay. All your comments really meant a lot to me. In this video I'm going to be talking a bit about why I left, what you can kind of expect from my channel going forward, and then of course I just want to talk about the books that I loved over the past year that I haven't been able to talk about with anyone. So first of all, where have I been? When we last talked, I don't know if you remember considering it's been so long, but I was just coming to the end of my degree. I did an open degree with the Open University and I was coming towards my final big exam, this kind of determining factor of what grade I was gonna get overall, and I was very stressed. In my head I was like, this is it, this is if I fail here, my degree will always be this, this and this, which is stupid because I ended up not needing to worry and I did really well, and I don't want to come across braggy, but I ended up getting a first, and that was just amazing because I knew how much work and time and mental energy I'd put into that. I don't think when I first stopped making videos it was kind of gonna be this I'm gonna stop for a year. I think at that time I was just okay, let's have a few weeks break, let's really focus on revision, and then that kind of it lasted a year. And also at that time, because I was quite stressed about uni, my mental health, just in every area of my life, was rock bottom. And I'm happy to say that I am feeling a lot better now. I'm just feeling much happier, and I've even started a job in the past 2 months. I started a job about 2 months ago, and I am an assistant proofreader and researcher for this small editing business, and I'm really loving that, and it's made me think of kind of what I want to do with my career going forward. Maybe I'll start my own business. I'll obviously take you along the journey of what I do in my life. I just really missed doing this. I think there was probably maybe I don't know, a good chunk of last year where I was I'm never doing that again. It stressed me out too much, I put too much pressure on myself, but that obviously didn't work because I think it was about a month ago, I really started, considering maybe I should make a video again, just try it out. Yeah, here we are. So what can you expect on this channel going forward? I know that a lot of people have subscribed to my channel over the past year because of my studying videos, and I don't really know how I can continue that because I have finished studying now. So maybe I'll do some more work with me videos. I don't know if anyone's interested in that, but of course I will continue to do book content. I think I'm going to aim for about 1 video a week. I don't want to overload myself and stress myself out again because we saw what happened last time. So I'm gonna aim for 1 video a week and then maybe bring out 1 to 2 extra videos or vlogs a month. I'm going to be, producing the standard booktube content, so wrap-ups, hauls, TBR videos. I know that everyone loved my TBR game, so hopefully that is going to return. It's gonna have a bit of an update, a new board, it's gonna be very much based on what it was before, but I want a brand new board that's all new and fresh and not been stuck behind a bookshelf for a year and got all grubby. It is going to be a bit different. I'm thinking that I might do bi-monthly TBR game videos and then still do a monthly TBR, but not necessarily those roles. It will make sense when I make the video. And then I would also like to try and make some experiment vlogs. They are some of my favourite videos to watch on booktube, random number generator picks my TBR or TikTok recommends. Yeah, I just want to have fun. Let me know if there's any videos that you would like me to make and I will see what I can do. Okay, so it's time to talk about all the books that I've loved over the past year, and there's a lot. But these are all books that I would highly recommend, some of my favourites of last year and the beginning of this year, and I think we should just dive straight in. The first honourable mention wasn't a 5-star read for me, but it was probably the biggest reading achievement of my life, and that was Les Misérables by Victor Hugo. So this is a huge book, and I read it and I ended up really enjoying this one. So I think I gave it a 4 or a 4.5. It wasn't a 5 because Victor Hugo does tend to go on these like long rambling discussions of things that no one cares about, like the sewer system. But apart from that, like the core story, if you took out all of this like waffle, it's fantastic. I knew that I loved this story. I've watched the musical, like the film. I've watched the TV show adaptation, which this cover is, you know, advertising, but that came out like years ago. The core story, which follows this man called Jean Valjean, who has just left, is it like the prison ships? And then he has this like religious kind of experience that really impacts his life going forward, and there's a whole cast of characters. It's set also during the French Revolution, and it is very tragic. Don't go into this book expecting a good time. I mean, it's called Les Misérables, which I'm sure is like the miserable or the destitute or something like that. I'm not sure the exact translation, but it was brilliant. And I think if you love, you know, the story itself, you've already seen the musical or some kind of adaptation, I would recommend it. Be aware that there are those like long rambling like 50-page discussions of things that are quite boring, but some of the lines in this are just incredible in the discussion of like the justice system and poverty, and I thought it was fantastic, so it had to be on this list. A series that I read last year was the Frostheart series by Jamie Littler. So again, this isn't necessarily like my favourite book series of all time. I think the highest rating I gave to this was a 4.5 for the last book. But this follows this boy called Ash, who lives in this world that is like covered in snow, and people live in these kind of strongholds in the snow, and there are these monsters called leviathans. And our main character Ash, he loves to sing, but in this world music is really frowned upon because it kind of attracts these monsters. And then he meets this crew of this ship called the Frostheart, and there's lots of adventures. They're trying to, you know, save the world. And it is for children, so it's a middle grade series, but it is just so wholesome and adventurous. And the last book, like I said, I think I rated it 4.5 because it just hit me in the feels. I loved like our found family cast of characters. I loved the illustrations. This is like fully illustrated all the way through, and it was just brilliant. It's magical, it's adventurous, it's heartwarming. If any of those are like things that you're looking for in a book, I definitely recommend picking up this series. My final honourable mention is the end of a series, and that is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. This is the third book in the Broken Earth trilogy, and the first book, the 5th season, follows a number of characters in this kind of apocalyptic world where there are these 5th seasons, which are these, you know, destructive events, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, that kind of thing. And there are people in this world who have this like earth magic, and because their magic is very much linked, you know, to the possibility of destroying the earth, they are very oppressed. And I don't really want to say too much because I think the beauty of this series is experiencing it for yourself and finding out all these reveals and seeing how the world expands so much, because by the time you get to this book, you're dealing with like huge things, huge concepts. And I will say that maybe I didn't understand everything in this book because there are some like big scientific things in this, but I think that shouldn't put you off if maybe you are a bit intimidated by this series, because the core of the story, these characters you're following, it is so emotional and impactful, and the ending of the book, yeah, it was brilliant. Okay, so now let's get into my favourite books, and the first one is Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman. This is very popular at the moment because a Netflix adaptation has just been released, and I haven't seen it yet because I'm still watching Bridgerton Season 2 and I just haven't really had time to watch TV at the moment. But as soon as I have like an afternoon or a day free, I'm gonna watch it in its entirety because this is my favourite graphic novel series of all time, and it follows these two boys, Nick and Charlie, in secondary school, and it's their love story, and it's heartwarming, and it is the cutest thing that I've ever read, and I literally have like tears of joy in my eyes when I'm reading these books. And volume 4 was just as good as the others. They've all been 5-star reads for me, and I think what I'm gonna do is maybe reread the first 2 books because they're the ones that have been adapted, and then watch the TV shows. So if you're interested in maybe a vlog of that, like my reactions to the first 2 books again and then the TV show, let me know. I know that Heartstopper content is like really popular at the moment. I love this series. If you haven't read it yet, please do it, or go and watch the TV show. Apparently it's a really great adaptation. But these books, you know, they're so quick and easy because they are just like, you know, huge panels. Yeah, some of the best. So you definitely need to try these if you haven't yet. Then we have This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Motar and Max Gladstone. So this is another super popular book on BookTube, and it follows these 2 kind of time agents who are on opposing sides of this time war, and it's really less about the war and more about their developing romantic relationship. The writing in this was stunning. Honestly, some of the best like imagery and writing that I think I've ever read. The way that these 2 agents communicate is not just like, you know, writing a letter and leaving it for someone to find. It's much more like experimental, and I don't really want to spoil everything, but for example, one of the ways that they give a message, one of them, is there's like a cup of tea, and as you swirl it, is it like the foam on the top of the tea like spells out the letters or something like that? And I just thought that was beautiful. I think there's another one where there's like a bumblebee and it kind of like spells out the letters like in its path. And I'm just like, beautiful. How do you come up with ideas like that? And it is only a short read, so I should probably reread it. Maybe I'll do that. I just really, really enjoyed this one. I also read a couple of books from Roxane Gay. So I read Bad Feminist and I read Hunger. Both of these are non-fiction memoir kind of books about Roxane Gay's experiences with feminism, and then Hunger is very much about her body and eating, and it's also, you know, looking at larger issues, so she's using her personal experiences to kind of lead into these bigger discussions. So we'll start with Bad Feminist. This is my favourite one so far. This one I gave 5 stars, and this looks at a lot of pop culture, and I really love it. I love Roxane Gay's writing style. It's very accessible, but also very compelling. You also delve into like some of her very traumatic life experiences. So there are major warnings for both of these books for sexual assault, for like disordered eating, for lots of things. So definitely check out the trigger warnings if you are thinking of going into these books. They are very raw, very detailed about her experiences. I think if you're looking for some non-fiction, maybe to get into non-fiction and these kind of topics interest you, I definitely recommend checking Roxane Gay out. And I would love to read some of her fiction. I know that she does have some fiction books out there, so I will definitely be getting my hands on them soon. We also have She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is an epic. An epic, that's what it is. You have this girl and her brother has kind of had this prophecy that he's destined for great things, and then I think their like village is attacked and her brother ends up dying, and she takes on his identity to go to this, is it like a military school? It's been a while since I read this and I don't actually have a physical copy because I think I read it as an ebook, but all I remember from this is that it was epic. It's very much like war driven. There's small like fantasy elements. There's a romance in this that was like brilliant. And I really, really enjoyed this. I think I need to pick up a physical copy and maybe reread it because I think it's the first in a duology or a series, so it might be worth, you know, refreshing my memory on this. But when I read this, I gave it 5 stars, loved it. Then we have Sorryland by Rivers Solomon. I'm not sure if I have talked about this book before, but this really stood out as one of my absolute favourite books. Like, all of these are my favourite books, but this one was like really near the top of the list. This follows follows this woman, Vern, who's been raised in this religious compound, and she ends up getting pregnant and then she escapes and she's just like surviving in the woods. But that's like very much the start of the story, because then it gets much bigger and it's very much about like transformation. It's very much looking at racism in America and the abuse of black bodies, and it was just incredible. And for some reason, like, this book really stuck with me. I think it had so many elements that I love, you know, compelling characters. It also had a lot of action. There were elements of this that reminded me a lot of like X-Men. And I just loved it. And it says in the blurb here that it's a work of gothic fiction, so it also has those gothic elements. It was just incredible. And again, this is one that I would definitely consider, you know, rereading. I have read something else from this author. I've read An Unkindness of Ghosts, and I did enjoy that, but I think I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't like a standout read for me, but this one definitely is, and I will probably pick up every other book that this author comes out with. The next book is another non-fiction, and that is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is one that I think I read around the time that I read Sorryland, so I was just having a brilliant time in my reading. And this is a memoir following the author's experiences in an abusive relationship, and it's kind of looking at how it's almost like a forgotten thing that there can be abuse within queer relationships, and it's not something that's really discussed much. But the real selling point for this book, I think, is the writing style itself. It's so experimental and unique. She's looking at her relationship through different lenses. So each of the chapters or sections is just really short. So it's like Dream House is road trip to everywhere, Dream House is queer villainy, Dream House is noir, and there's just these like short segments about this relationship and how she's kind of, you know, coped with it and the impact that it's had, the repercussions that it's had on her life, and it was just beautiful. I listened to this one as an audiobook. I definitely want to pick up some more memoirs because I think that's something that I could really enjoy. It's like more like creative non-fiction rather than just facts and figures. I love hearing about people's lives and then looking at larger issues like leading from that. So this was just an incredible read, very hard-hitting again, but brilliant. And another one that I want to reread. I just want to reread all these books. Like, picking these up and like talking about them has just made me so excited about them again. And maybe reading it physically might be a good idea because obviously I listened to it the first time. But yeah, brilliant. Now we're going to get into my favourite book so far of this year. Now, my reading this year hasn't been the best. I've had like, I think like 2 5-stars in the whole year, and one of them was a Robin Hobb, which is like one of my favourite authors. We'll get into her in a minute, so that wasn't really a surprise. But yeah, hopefully I get some more 5-star reads soon. But anyway, so this is my other 5-star read of the year, and that was Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. So this is another middle grade. I'm getting more into middle grade. I want to explore that a bit more, and this follows this girl called Amari, of course. Why did I forget that? It's literally called Amari and the Night Brothers. Anyway, so it follows this girl, Amari, whose brother has kind of gone missing, and she ends up getting this briefcase from her brother. I think it's a briefcase, some kind of correspondence from her brother, and she finds out about the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, which is this kind of, you know, secret agent bureau that deals with supernatural things, magic, supernatural creatures, and they're kind of hiding that from the rest of the world. And it very much is compared a lot to Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, which is another one of my favourite middle grade series, and I can definitely understand those comparisons. Both of them have this like school setting. Nevermore is very much a school setting in the second book, but this one you have Amari going to this Bureau of Supernatural Affairs and she has to compete in these tryouts to get into this bureau. There's a whole cast of characters and it's very close-knit and, you know, found family, and she's also on this like journey to figure out what's happened to her brother. And you know what? I just loved it. I really I loved every second. It was so adventurous, so fun. Seeing Amari, you know, come into her own in this book, like, she's such a strong and compelling main character, and you just want her to succeed. And when she does succeed, you're just like so happy for her. I know a lot of people recommend this one too. It is probably one of the most popular middle grade books out there, but it's definitely worth the hype. I think if you love Nevermore, I think that you'll really like this. If maybe you're wanting to try out some more middle grade, I definitely recommend this one as a place to start. So this is probably my favourite book of the year so far. Does it beat Robin Hobb? I don't know. And talking of Robin Hobb, I read a lot of Robin Hobb since we last spoke. So I have read Fool's Errand, The Golden Fool, Fool's Fate, Dragon Keeper, Dragon Haven, City of Dragons, and Blood of Dragons. So I've read a lot of Robin Hobb, and I will say that some of the last books that I read, like some in this Dragon series, these two were only 3.5, but I do still think that Robin Hobb is one of my favourite authors, if not my favourite author of all time, because so many of her books within this like expansive elderling world have been 5 stars. My favourite book of last year actually ended up being A Ship of Destiny, which I think I've already talked about on this channel like before I disappeared, but this is probably my favourite book of all time. And I know that's quite an unpopular opinion because I don't think everyone loves this book. This is the 3rd book in the Live Ship Traders, but this one, it got me. Like, I read so much of this book in one go, and it is so big, and like the emotional roller coaster that I was put through. But anyway, all those books that I talked about, I loved. And if you don't know what Robin Hobb's Elderling universe is about, the first book is Assassin's Apprentice, and that follows this boy called Fitz, who is the illegitimate son of the heir to the throne, and his father, when he finds out about Fitz, kind of is like, oh dear, abdicates his position, goes off to the country, and then Fitz ends up getting raised by the stable master, and then he is kind of enlisted to become the royal assassin. But you know what? Since we've had that first book, so much has happened. Obviously you can tell that there are dragon books, so there's a lot of dragon magic, there's other types of magic, there's the skill, which is all about communicating with like people through your mind, there's the wit, which is all about communicating with animals. It's so expansive, the characters are brilliant, the writing is like so comforting, and honestly I could talk about Robin Hobb for like hours because I just love her books so much. And there's only one trilogy left in the realm of the Elderlings, and I'm not ready. So that's it. Those are some of my favourite books from the past year. This has probably been a really long video, so if you stuck to the end, thank you. I'm really excited for the future of this channel, and I hope that you will come along this journey with me and let me know what your favourite book of the last year has been, or your favourite book of this year, favourite book of last year. Thank you for watching, and to everyone out there, stay curious. Bye!